Okay, we'll stop talking about Soccer Philip.
Morning.
Morning.
All right, people.
Okay. Just waiting on some more to join.
I think this is just you and I.
You might be right.
I used to have an office on the fourth floor. Oh, yeah? Okay. I guess I'm ready to, yeah.
Oh, this is hard.
I was with the Szuter.
That's so sweet.
And all right parking there.
I told you guys that his wife found him.
And then, yeah, just out of the blue.
Oh, it's live, so people can hear you.
Yes.
And, but then it was like another year or two before they got started on actually developing.
We actually have a couple of just recently put this place up on the market, but there's like 2 or 3 residents that are actually still there from when they actually picked out their finishes.
There you go. Morning, everybody.
Still waiting on people to join us.
And Brad, you have my new favorite car washes. I finally did the downtown one a couple weeks ago. And then I went to Grandview to go to Moon.
Hi, Carol.
How are you doing? Good to see
Mine
you.
was just to the street. I was like, I'll try
Good to
this.
see you in the chat.
Yeah, there you go. Good to see you. You chat.
Okay, this is going to be an exciting forum because we're going to be talking about everything that's going on downtown, which is remarkable to me because, you know, it's COVID and it's still plugging along.
Still booming. We still have all the cranes down here. I was driving through the other day, and yeah, I was just amazed. Especially the stadium. The stadium is like flying up.
It
looks
is.
like it's
It
almost
is.
done.
It's exciting.
So that part is very cool. And now we heard they're going to be able to have folks in the stadium starting in April, 30% capacity. So that's awesome. Hey, Doug.
Hi,
How
Doug.
you doing? We are looking forward to this too. We were just talking about all the.
We are not visible yet, Carol, but we will once they
There we
put
go.
the camera on us. There we go.
Here, now you can see us.
Hi.
We're invisible. We're just talking about how much is going on downtown, even in the midst of COVID. So it's exciting. That feels positive. I'm looking forward to hearing from Rich. Bob is here. He and his dad have been so successful downtown, and they have such a great spot. And the food at the restaurant is fabulous. So I hope to hear that they have been able to be successful during this time.
Yes. I mean, living with an architect, you hear all the projects that are going on downtown, so I'm excited to hear about what's going to be built and what's
But it's also weird that I'm driving.
I don't know if anything has stopped. That would be.
That's what I was thinking. I don't know if there was not a stall, but a moment when they kind of paused on the new hotel that's supposed to go up near
That's true.
North Market. But I
They
think
didn't, though.
it's still going
It's
forward.
still going,
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, we are so out of touch not having an office downtown.
I know. We're all working from home, so we can't even see the progress
Yes,
that's going on.
that's right. That's right. So I'm sure that's affecting some of our businesses. We are going to have a follow-up conversation with Tom Daly. He's the owner of Zoop, and he has his location downtown. So I am looking forward to seeing or hearing what he has to say about how it's been for him without lunch rush and without, you know, people walking around downtown. So
I know, that has to be great, because the only time I would come downtown is coming here to the boathouse for our forums, and you drive around and it's just so empty.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely not what it was.
yeah, that part is going to be interesting how they're going to transition because work is going to be different and there's still going to be a lot of remote learning. Well, remote learning and also remote working.
Yeah.
So,
But there are a lot of schools that are actually, they're going to put them, they're going to go back to in-person, you know, full-time, so.
which might give parents an opportunity then to actually go back to the office. Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
that's true, Doug. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yes. I know.
You didn't have to be hospitalized.
There were a couple different places that did event spaces I was thinking about right before COVID. And I think events will come back. I just
Yeah,
don't
it's
know how
gonna take
many
some
people
time.
are
Yeah.
going to attend. So,
Depends on people's comfortability.
That's
And I
true.
think the vaccine too. So.
and we have our new vaccine, Johnson & Johnson. One shot
But yes, but it's like 67% effective.
on
So-
mild.
Okay.
And it's
got it.
85% effective on
Severe.
severe.
Okay, got
Which
it.
is pretty similar. That's what
Right.
I was focused on too. I was like, wow, it's not going to be as good.
Okay.
But
All right,
no,
well,
it's
that
gonna
makes me
be-
feel a little better.
Yeah, and just one shot, which would make things so much easier
Yeah, yeah.
for everybody.
So, yeah, but anyway, looking forward to today's discussion. And put in the chat if you are excited to hear about this discussion. What new things are you excited about coming downtown? You can go ahead and put that in the chat, and we can discuss. But glad to have you here.
Maybe you continue to come downtown? Do you come downtown for dinner maybe? Or I know that there's some very few concerts that you're able to still hear or live music. And I think we're all looking forward to better weather, of course. But
Yes.
with the warm weather, maybe some things will be able to come back downtown,
Yeah,
especially like
that's true.
Picnic at the Pops and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the
yeah.
concerts on the Commons. And so also for sure, some people are going to come downtown because the Jackets also get to have fans.
Oh, that's right.
Only 10%, but starting whenever the next game is, sorry, I don't know when that is.
Yeah.
Somebody out there does. And I know you've got to be very excited, especially if you're a season ticket holder, that, you get to get back in that arena. So,
Yeah, didn't Governor DeWine say sporting events in April he's pushing to 30% capacity? Okay, so that's
yep,
exciting.
that will be.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to figure out, I guess that would apply to the Clippers. I've been wondering about the Clippers. So that stadium is a great stadium. And, of course, the Crew.
Yep.
Although I don't think they'll be in this new stadium until
I thought it was until the
next season.
Yeah, next season.
I was thinking at least later in the season for sure. So not right away.
Yeah. That is true, Carol. Some businesses do find it easy to work remotely. But I know there are some businesses that probably want to come back.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure there's people who own the offices who are hoping to come
Yes,
back.
yes.
Commercial real estate probably will be a part of this discussion to some extent.
Yep.
So they asked if you.
Hello.
Gelato, gelato?
Yes, that's what I
Like
thought.
gelato?
Say hello to everyone, Steve.
Yes,
Hi.
you're.
Oh, there.
Yes,
You're
exactly.
on, there you go.
And if you're out there, hi, Courtney.
If you're just now joining us, everyone, we are
Oh,
excited
July.
to. Oh, that's cool.
That is very
Thanks,
cool.
Doug. If you're just now joining us, put in the chat if you're excited about today's forum or if you're excited about anything that's going
Thanks, Marc.
up downtown.
Say hi, everyone.
Right there. Marc Conte,
Marc
everyone.
Conte, yes, there he is, in the flesh.
So, Mark, you can, until he introduces you, you can stand just off camera here.
Oh, you were going to say, I think Mantra was going to say, don't forget you can put questions in
Yes.
the chat.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
And is
Yeah.
that live?
Anytime, during the forum, and Mantra and I will get them to Jane so that you'll be able to actually interact with questions with the panel.
That is true.
And you can
Thanks,
see our lovely
Lynn.
panel, they're getting ready.
I'm excited about this one. We've had
Looking
so
good.
many that
Yep.
have
Hey, Bruce.
Hi, Bruce, how's it going?
Good to see you in the chat.
Yeah, we got to have special guest stars stop in our show today.
I know.
So excited.
I am too. I love this place. It's a
So 5 minutes until showtime, everyone.
I'll also put a little plug in here since we have a minute. If you buy a virtual seat, you are invited to an after-forum conversation with a host. And anyone who buys a virtual seat could be included in that. So I just wanted to let you know, that's a great opportunity. We always have a really good, it's a very casual conversation. we're kind of trying to recreate that time after the forum when you would have had a chance to talk with your friends,
Right.
you know, about their impressions and all that kind of thing. So this is our virtual recreation of coffee and cookies, essentially.
Yes.
So, if you bought a virtual seat, you should have received your invitation. And if you do so during the forum, I'll check and make sure to send you that. So,
It's always a lively discussion
It is.
after the forum. We always have a lively discussion during the forum and then a lively discussion after. So
this is right. This is
it's
right.
good to join.
It's fun and it's Zoom, so you get to actually see some folks you maybe haven't seen in a while. So, feel free to jump on there and buy a virtual seat, and I'll get you an invitation.
Yeah, Frankie's down there.
Yep. And I see our numbers are climbing. Hi,
Hi,
Joey.
Hi. How are you?
Hi, Joey.
We're happy to see you.
Yes. People are joining. Thank you for joining, everyone. And like Lainey stated earlier, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat. I can send them over to Jane, and hopefully we will get to everyone's question. But yeah, go ahead and put that question in the chat as quickly as you can, and I can get it over.
Yeah, we have to think of a name for our show.
I know.
You can put your ideas in chat,
Yes.
as long as they're nice.
Yes, yes, yes. That's a good point, Lainey.
I really need to think of something else.
I know. I love the Lainey Mantra show. Thanks, Joey.
Sorry. Oh, my.
Yes, we know it's Joey.
That's right. Joey. Everybody who is with us right now remembers Joey. She's the beautiful little lady who always greeted you at the door. And she misses seeing everyone, and we certainly miss seeing her.
Yeah.
So,
Hi, Seema.
hi, Seema. How are you? Thanks for joining us, guys.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, Bill. Glad you're here.
Thanks for joining, everyone.
Bill and Seema do a really good job throughout the chat, putting their questions in
Yes.
oftentimes. But for those of you who maybe haven't joined us before, that is something you can do. You have a question for the panel, put it in the chat, and Mantra will see it, send it on to Jane, and hopefully we'll get to it so you can interact with our panel in that way.
Now everyone is seeing Joey's on, so they're saying hello.
She's so popular. Maybe she should have her show.
Yes,
We
the
should have
Joey show.
Joey do a show.
Hi, Steve.
All right. Hi, Steve. And Bruce is doing a plug for that virtual conversation. Don't forget, if you buy a virtual seat.
Alan will give you the final cue.
Hi, Mary and Bob. Good to have you on our
Mary.
chat.
Yeah. It's nice to see you. See you.
I know. 1 minute until showtime, everyone.
We are so glad so many of you have joined us early. This is
Yes.
excellent. We've got a little preview of our panel. I think Joey is trending.
I know.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. We're live streaming from the Boathouse at Confluence Park. I'm Steve Marks, chair of the CMC Board of Trustees and president of Hannah News Service here in Columbus. And I want to thank you for tuning in today. Let's begin by welcoming several new members. Courtney Filato with JP Morgan Chase, Frederick Rancier, Mark Shade, Bobby Tritshaw and Jeff Reed from Honda. Thank you for joining. Conversation moves us forward and members power our conversation. We'd like to invite you to join CMC. Membership is very affordable and a great investment in yourself professionally and in the community. Today's forum is sponsored by the Edwards Company, Marker Inc., and the Robert Weiler Company. Metro Club live streaming is presented by the Emergency Response Fund of the Columbus Foundation and in partnership with the Columbus Dispatch and PNC. We'd also like to thank those of you who purchased a virtual seat for today's forum. We are very, very, very grateful for your support. Largely because of you, we are able to continue live streaming. Thank you. You can learn more about CMC, register for events, join or renew your membership, purchase a virtual seat, or make a donation anytime at columbusmetroclub.org. Now on to today's forum. Over the past year, downtown Columbus has been through a lot. COVID left downtown offices empty as people moved home to work. Many local businesses were damaged as vandals and criminals hijacked otherwise peaceful protests, and gatherings and gathering places shuttered to avoid the spread of COVID. But despite the setbacks, downtown development is thriving with new investments, new buildings, and renovations continuing, along with more plans for the future. Existing and new apartment buildings continue to attract young professionals and empty nesters, and Kappa just announced the reopening of the Ohio Theater for the fall Broadway series. Downtown may be a bit bruised, but it's certainly posed for a strong comeback. Let's hear what's in store. Let's welcome founder of Connect Realty, Brad DeHays, co-founder and head of operations, Wolf's Ridge Brewing, Bob Szuter, assistant professor, departments of family medicine and population and health sciences at the Boonshoft School of Medicine, Wright State University, and downtown resident, Timothy Crawford, and our host today, acting director, Capital Crossroads and Discovery Special Improvements Districts, Marc Conte. Marc will start things off with a look at the stats, then the host of the conversation. Marc, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you to the Columbus Metropolitan Club for hosting the forum again this year. It's really an honor to be here. As Steve mentioned, I work for the Capital Crossroads and Discovery Special Improvement Districts in downtown. These two organizations were created by property owners to provide extra services out in the public realm, such as supplemental safety and cleaning, homeless outreach, promotions, beautification, and downtown CPAS. We also prepare this annual report about the health of downtown each year. Last year, I was on stage 2 weeks before Governor DeWine declared a state of emergency due to the spread of COVID in Ohio. I was optimistic that we would not see a recession in 2020, but I did admit at the time we didn't know exactly how COVID would affect the economy. And boy, did it affect it. It affected downtown's two biggest market sectors significantly. First, the office market. CBRE reported the downtown office vacancy rate jumped 5 points from 14% in 2019 to 19% by the end of 2020. All the gains made in 2019 were wiped out for two reasons. Companies in downtown and the suburbs, and we saw this across the country, they rushed to sublet unused office space, including space they don't plan to reoccupy even after the pandemic is a distant memory. Second, downtown added about 500,000 square feet of new office space in 2020 when leasing activity slowed significantly. That same phenomenon happened with the downtown residential market. Data from local firm Vote Strategic Insights shows that the apartment occupancy rate dropped 8 points from 94% in 2019 to 86% in 2020. A record number of units opened last year, 1,200. That's the most units that were added since 2013 when 600 units opened. Another 1,000 units will likely open in 2021. Now, filling those apartments would be easy, except for three forces have been working against it. First, fewer people moved. Bloomberg City Lab reports that there were likely 35% less moves than normal throughout the state of Ohio. Second, the George Floyd protests and the damage the first few nights caused many to rethink moving downtown, at least temporarily. These demonstrations and the message were extremely important for our community, but downtown is still recovering from some of the impacts. And finally, many of the amenities of downtown living, downtown's locational advantage, won't recover until the pandemic subsides. This leads to the really big question: what does the future hold for downtown after the pandemic? The short answer: COVID is a bump in the road and not a monumental shift.
though if downtown is ignored, that's not a guarantee. With each of downtown's market sectors, there are things we know and things we don't know, and I'll give you some examples. What we know, companies will still want offices and they still will want to be downtown, and it will be a choice location. What we don't know is how many people will permanently work from home or do a combination of home and office. Cushman and Wakefield and George Washington University studied large-scale remote work and the impacts on offices. The high productivity we saw at the very beginning of the pandemic is starting to wane. Zoom fatigue is becoming a documented challenge. The ability to get new hires integrated into company culture and the ability to build camaraderie among teams is really being hampered. A hybrid approach won't necessarily mean smaller spaces. If everyone needs to be in the office on the same days, companies won't be able to shrink their footprints. Rather, companies will reconfigure the space to maximize the benefits of being together, which means more communal space like training rooms or cafes that support collaboration and creative thinking. We have learned over this last year that creativity happens with social interaction, and that's what makes downtown, one of the things that makes downtown special, that downtown facilitates that interaction both inside and between companies. More things, what we know. Interest in downtown living remains strong. What we don't know is when downtown's locational advantage will return. Downtown will especially be appealing for people who do end up working from home permanently and still want the benefit of being close to everything during the workday. For example, taking your break in mid-afternoon or mid-morning at the coffee house at the base of your building is much more enjoyable than having to drive from your suburban subdivision over to a Starbucks drive-thru. What we know, downtown retail, which is really mostly restaurants, is tied very closely to office occupancy since we just don't have enough downtown residents yet to support all the restaurants we have. As office workers come back, the restaurants will bounce back. What we don't know is how many workers will come back and will they be back soon enough to prevent more restaurants from closing. What we know, our hotels will bounce back. What we don't know, how quickly that will happen again. Regional visitor traffic will be down this summer as we are already seeing a lot of summer festivals get canceled. Conventions have a long lead time for booking, usually a year or more. And then business travel will likely be down long term because everyone has this now newfound fluency in online meetings, so companies are really going to rethink if they physically need to send somebody on a business trip. Despite these challenges, I'm bullish on downtown, and we all should be because downtown is important and special. It's the largest income tax generator and enables the city to provide services and investments in other neighborhoods. It's a symbolic heart of our community. When our country was in pain and reacting to the death of George Floyd and people wanted to come together, people came downtown. They wanted to be in the space that they felt was the center of their community and where their voice would be heard. And downtown is the lens through which we present Central Ohio. It provides the identity of a growing metropolitan region, a region that continues to seek more national and international attention. Given this, we can't leave downtown's recovery to chance. The downtown supporters I've talked to over the last year feel like the clock has been wound back 20 years. That's a sobering comment. Downtown's 20 years of progress, all the new development could have easily happened elsewhere in the region or in another city entirely. The city of Columbus, private sector developers and employers, and many urban-minded individuals shared a vision, and each played their part to advance that vision. The tremendous progress we have experienced wasn't easy. Our future success will not be easy either, but our commitment to making downtown thrive is critical because the success of downtown contributes to the success of our region. We'll now move to comments from our panel. We have, as Steve introduced them earlier, we have Brad DeHays from Connect Realty, Bob Szuter from Wolf's Ridge Brewing, and Timothy Crawford, a downtown resident. And the first question for the panel, and this is for each of you, how did the events of 2020 impact you and your specific role in downtown?
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. Thank you, Steve and Jane and Columbus Metropolitan Club and the Board of Trustees for putting this on. Adding focus to downtown for us on the development side is incredibly important, especially because, we're going into a warmer season. I was listening to a 97.1 The Fan this morning, and I think Bobby Carpenter said it felt almost like Bambi, where you come outside and birds were chirping and the sun was up, and it started making me think of something we call the seasonal shift. And we see this in leasing a lot. And it adds, a positive feeling, going forward. And where we came from, last year, and I'm thinking through to some of the low points in the conference calls that we had regarding downtown when we were just after the end of the protests. We were obviously right in the heart of COVID and going into the fall. PPP had been spent by many companies. Didn't know if a second round was going to come. And everything that we heard was this is going to get really, really ugly. And we look at it in development as, we do all of our leasing typically on the residential side between April and September, and we try to pack as much in, by August as we can. And it was really ugly. And I think right now, coming out of this, winter wasn't as bad as we thought it could get to. Now, I think I read some of the numbers in the state of downtown Columbus, the new report that you put out, and there was some office numbers that were a little concerning in the fourth quarter. But it appears to me that I think a lot of those are from the subleases that were put out there, that a lot of office tenants were just generally putting up their space for sublet, and that floods the market availability, so kind of skews the numbers a little bit. But on the overall, going into summer, new projects, we're incredibly bullish. We talk more about that in a bit, but there's a lot of great things happening. Other developers, some of the big boys in town are putting up very large buildings, and that's positive, for all of us that are in the space, and we look forward to big things coming around the corner.
Yeah, thank you for having us. 2020 was definitely hard for the restaurant downtown specifically. You probably can imagine, but downtown does really well with convention traffic, tourism traffic. Obviously, with that going away, things were quiet in early March, and we kind of saw the writing on the wall that things were going to be shut down. So for us, we kind of shifted into innovation mode and said, well, what can we do to continue operating? That was the biggest thing for us, is we wanted to maintain as much staff as we could for as long as we could. So we shifted to delivery service like a lot of other breweries did, moved into the third-party purveyors or third-party delivery services, Uber Eats, et cetera. Set up our own to allow for our staff to continue to deliver food throughout Central Ohio. And that first week was probably the hardest of my entire life, not only to try to adapt a business that 75% of which was gone overnight when the restaurant was shut down, but at home with my wife working and our two kids, what to do there. So it was really tough, but our staff, who I can't say enough about, really adapted well to this and allowed us to kind of keep going, keep that business operating so that there was light at the end of the tunnel as we continued on. There were certainly some pretty low points as things continued. The protests downtown were actually a rallying point, I think, for our business and our staff. It gave us an opportunity to really connect with the community. We, made sandwiches and gave them out to protesters and tried to show our support for what was happening. I know that there was a lot of pushback on what this means for downtown businesses, but for us it was, this is an extremely historical moment in time that we wanted to be on the right side of history with this. So, that was good for our staff. That was, good for it was needed for the community to, show that. And then, as we went along, as Brad alluded to, the PPP money didn't do much for us as a restaurant business. We were on a call early on with Congressman Stivers, who, point blank said that this was not well designed for the hospitality business, and that rang true. So it didn't do much for most restaurants. I think that people need to understand that is, especially small businesses. We struggled early on, and the PPP didn't carry us too far. So we were waiting for something, which has come with the second draw option in the December legislation that passed. So that is encouraging. If for our business, it's allowed us to really know that we'll get through this. So we are, we're now kind of transitioning to how can we best be positioned? How can we, support downtown as best as we can, in 2021 and beyond. So we're, shifting to excitement at this point. There's obviously things we know could change on a dime, so we're still cautious, but yeah, we're definitely trying to put 2020 behind us and look towards the future right now.
Hi, yeah, so I am serving as the downtown resident here, but what COVID did, so obviously I don't work in the city, but I live downtown, so COVID kind of forced me to come back and work and live at the same time. So it was a little bit difficult with the shift and, leaving for work and coming home, but we dealt with it. And so I will say, like, it was kind of interesting being stuck at home and not being able to see, crowds walking up and down on a Saturday night because we were all locked down. I will say that I was proud of my city in Columbus, especially during the protests of George Floyd, seeing everybody come downtown to support the movement. I saw a lot of people in our building as well as other buildings close to us with signs saying, "Say her name, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd." So it really made me proud during this time. I know it was during the time of COVID, but it was a time that everybody came together, and I was really excited to see that, downtown Columbus was coming together for this specific cause. So I take that as a positive for this year, even though 2020 has kind of looked as the bad year that we want to get over. But for me, it was kind of one of those shining moments that I thought the city came together. And so I hope that also shed a light for those who were hesitant to come to downtown because of the protests, but looked at it as like we were a community coming together to fight this injustice.
I want to talk a little bit more about that, and not that I live and die by what gets posted on message boards, but given some comments I've seen on message boards and people I've talked to, I've gotten this impression that there's a lot of people who aren't coming downtown right now or who haven't been downtown in a year or more that feel that downtown is now unsafe, whether it's because of the protest or we do see an increased amount of people just in need out on the streets as well. So have you noticed a change in the reality of how safe it is to be downtown?
I'll take just to start on that. Yeah, no, not at all. I think that it's extremely safe. Especially in our pocket, which is kind of northeast downtown. We see, the special improvement district folks moving around. There's activity. It's certainly much quieter, but even during the protests and even the stuff that happened post January 6th. We never closed our business. We did on occasion close down early if we felt like things were, coming closer, and it was always our staff. We never cared about the building itself. That stuff's replaceable. But, we've always felt that it was important to make sure that, we stayed open to show, this is downtown. Like this is our city. We are going to be here, and I think that the rest of the public has continued to come out, and it feels just as safe as it did, 2019.
So there was a point in time when we thought that it wasn't safe, and I was on the call with Marc and his team, and city officials and police commander. We dealt with some things downtown that some of the people in the space in the nonprofit world, if you weren't down there, you really wouldn't understand what they had to deal with. We had, the homeless shelters had to separate because of COVID, and at the same time of when we don't have enough homeless shelters right now as it is, and the YMCA had obviously stepped up, housed homeless there. That helped on one end, but then what it did also is it created some other issues like unforeseen consequences. And we did not feel unsafe during the protests. We had employees down there in the protests. We had projects right at the epicenter. We have, tear gas, and smoke bombs were going off right in front of the projects, right? And our workers did not feel unsafe. For the most part, the protests, from a business perspective, were peaceful. What happened at night, we had 7 buildings that were hit, and it was kind of death by 1,000 paper cuts because it wasn't quite enough to where when insurance will cover it, because it didn't. I mean, it was a significant capital loss, but I went down there with my son and went through, and it was a great learning experience for me and for him. And I think I never felt unsafe when we were down there. Now, with regards to what happened after, in July, August, September, there were some unforeseen consequences with regards to misdemeanors and drugs and things like that for a short period of time really was sketchy and was concerning. And one of the things that we dealt with during that time was, as soon as we had a problem, we had the Special Improvement District, Capital Crossroads, available, calling the police commander, calling city officials, having conference calls. The mayor's team was on those calls, city council was on those calls, and we have a very in-tune leadership here in Columbus. And I'll say that, when they recognize a problem, it was a hard thing because you have peaceful protests that you don't want to have, arrests made and things like that. But at the same time is you have things like drug use, that open drug use. And, it's these two different things, and where do you draw the line? And that was an issue that we had. But over a period of 8 to 12 weeks, it was addressed. And I was, honestly, it made me feel significantly more confident. And I think that's what you said, Bob. And I think, I was happy. I was really proud of our city. I think, Tim, that's what you said was, we live in a very unique place, and downtown Columbus is the reason that the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission's area has been so attractive, and we've seen so much success over the years, is because people make a decision to move to Columbus in contrast to other cities, mainly because of the urban vibe and because of downtown. Now, you may make a choice to move to a suburb, but that's a kind of an ancillary decision after you've already said, you know what, I want to live in Columbus. And I think how we made it through that time downtown when it was basically a ghost town that was very difficult because there was a feeling of lawlessness for a very short amount of time down there, that I think leadership got involved and they were able to come to a conclusion that was, best case scenario, and we're ready to build off of it.
And Tim, you said you've been down here now 24/7 during COVID, and so I always see residents especially notice at night if they think that things are getting unsafe. So has your experience changed?
Yeah, so during the protests, it was kind of interesting because it was something happened that technically we haven't been used to. So like the whole idea of the protest and understanding that, and kind of what Brad was alluding to, kind of aside from the protest, a lot of things that were happening that were completely unrelated to the protest, of people doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. At the beginning, there was a little bit of kind of being a little unnerved, like, what's going on, and some of our friends were a little nervous as well. But I think over time, we weren't necessarily afraid or nervous. We knew, like Brad was saying with Sid helping out, we would reach out to them to say, okay, there's some activity going on. Can we get some help with that? They would immediately reach out and try to fix the situation. So knowing that we had services and places people that we could talk to and help, it kind of alleviated the nervousness or fear that we have. And honestly, I've never been, the 6 years I've been here, even this 2020, I've never been afraid or in fear of living downtown. It never crossed my mind, especially thinking like, oh, I'm so afraid that I can't even leave my home. Honestly, COVID, I was like, I need to get out of here as quickly as I can. So I'm going to walk out and not be afraid. So I would say, like, for me and my family, we never really felt that fear that we were like, we need to get out of here.
Shifting gears here, Bob, with restaurants and retail, how did the on-street dining program go, and are you looking to hopefully do that again this year?
Yeah, the on-street dining program, I think, was a huge success. Obviously, we, the Restaurant Association and others, have been pushing for that. I applaud the city for making sure that they took their time on it and had it right, and we were doing it at the right time. There was a much larger story, i.e. the pandemic, that needed to be addressed before we went forward with this. So, but when they did, as Brad mentioned, like the collaboration within the city was, fantastic. We'd experienced that before. We had the chief building official come down and help us out with a wheelchair accessibility, ADA issue. years ago, and we've always been pretty supportive of their willingness to jump in and help out with businesses, and I think this was a great example of that. They got the right people on the phone. They said what, listened to restaurants and bars and said what, did what needed to get done to make that happen. So we've been in contacts, and it sounds like this is something that's going to come back. So we're really, really excited about that. We, would certainly advocate this to be a thing that happened forever. I think what we saw was, downtown has been very quiet, as we all know. And when they started the on-street dining program, it was just a, injection of energy, safe, distanced energy in this quiet pocket of downtown. And we kind of figured that downtown is typically quieter in the summertime anyways. I mean, you can look at any surface lot and see how fewer cars are there, in June, July, August, as compared to, the rest of the year. So, we would love to see this be a thing that was happening every year, because I think increasing access to al fresco on-street dining would be a great look for the city. Obviously allow for more people to be downtown, and then everything else that comes from that. I think it's a really good program. So.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that with our peer cities, that the whole slow streets movement of trying to reclaim more space for people as opposed to cars is really taken off during COVID. And yeah, I hope we keep making progress over the future years. Brad, what's attracting people to your units living downtown, whether it's your specific units like the micro units or just generally that you're hearing from potential residents?
So every year you have, typically you have your turnover in the spring and summer, and you're hoping to have net gain in your occupancy. With our micro apartments, is what you're talking about. I think we have those down on 4th Street, in that block right there with Hadley's and Mikey's Late Night Slice, and those apartments, they kind of prove, an economic argument as to where there's not enough affordable housing downtown, and it's not an easy solution. We have this. Every metropolitan area has the same issue, and it is larger than just a downtown district. But with that, I think it's a price point. It's a very good, clean product at a very attractive price point. And when people are just moving to town, you typically navigate, towards the urban environment, especially if you're coming from another metropolitan area. It's a little bit intimidating, to some people, maybe Midwesterners, to hey, I'm from a rural environment, and when I moved here, I thought, ooh, I don't know if I could do downtown. And then once I lived down there in the Brewery District, I said, I love this place. And I think people go through that natural, process. And with us, we get a lot of people that first move to Columbus, test out one of these apartments, and then they'll move on to maybe a larger apartment. And I think that's where we're getting a lot of. It's not so much of people that are just renting and staying, but people are moving around. People are getting comfortable. They're finding out what neighborhoods work for them. We have a couple great entertainment districts. I think Bob's Brewery is obviously fantastic. Penn's is open right there across the street. If you go down there, you can park in the parking lot right across the street, pay the machine. That works out well. But down on the other end on 4th Street, you have Mikey's Late Night Slice, you have Hadley's, you have Pecan Pennies and the Walrus. These little areas are popping up. And that is typically where people start to migrate to, is they may not want to live right above all that action, but they'll live a block or two away, because at the end of the day, you're a short walk to happy hour, you have coffee shops that you can access, and that whole thing we talk about, walkable environments and walkable communities, which is what developers strive for, especially in suburban markets. That fabric is they're trying to implicate what you get downtown naturally, and downtown offers it. You can hit multiple districts downtown, and you can live in between them, and you don't have to only hit your watering hole or your restaurants that are right there on your strip. You can walk 6 more blocks the other way and hit another one. And I think that's the appeal. And as downtown repopulates, some of the new retail users that are coming into downtown, I think are going to be able to drive it, because what's new typically drives new interest and demand. And we have some great staples that, luckily have made it through a very difficult business time. But with going forward, some of the new investments downtown, I think I heard last week, some people are having trouble getting liquor licenses. And that's not something that's normal. And you would think with all of the businesses that supposedly had gone out of business that there would be an abundance of liquor licenses, but apparently it's not the case. And that tells me that there are a lot of things that are in the works that we're probably going to see come to fruition here over the summer.
Tim, as a resident, what kind of retail are you looking for? Obviously, online shopping has really shot up over the last year, but as a percentage of overall sales, it's still pretty minimal. And so we know people still want to shop for some things in person. What would be some things appealing as a resident?
Yeah, so for me, my husband and I have kind of discussed this as well. Things like, obviously there are grocery stores on the periphery of downtown. We would love to have like more grocery options. So if we wanted to walk, if I forget something, I could just easily walk to the grocery store and pick up something. Like I think like the DGX in the Commons is like a nice opportunity as well. But having that in the different districts where we can just easily, because like I said earlier, before COVID, I was driving to work and driving home. On the weekend, I really want to park my car and not have to drive anywhere. Another example is just things like, for example, in Ohio State, the students there have their Target. Like there would be a great way to have an urban Target in the center of downtown where we can, if I need something, I can easily get out and walk instead of having to drive to the suburbs to get some of the amenities and items that we need. And that's honestly why we like downtown, be able to just park a car and for the whole weekend not have to drive it and just to walk to things. But for us, like those essential items like the groceries, Target-ish kind of places where we can just walk and get those amenities without having to either drive or order online. Ordering online is great, but for me too, I like to be able to just walk in and see what I need. And of course, if I didn't go in there to see what I need and something pops out at me, I'm like, oh, I'll get that.
Yeah, impulse buying just isn't there with online shopping sometimes.
Right. And if I could add to that, I think we've all hit on it, but it's the walkability that for me and on the restaurant side is so critical, I think, to the success and the energy of downtown. We are on 4th Street, which it's a thoroughfare, and it's basically a highway when you get to us. We had a sidewalk dining permit when we first opened. We never used it because people just fly down that street. And I think Broad Street is a similar example too. It's massive, and there's such an opportunity to slow traffic down, improve pedestrian safety. Biking is critical, I think, to downtown to get people to move from, Short North and Old Town East and German Village. That to me, I think, is a huge opportunity for our city to really improve in how we have it structured down there.
We're going to move to questions from our live stream audience in just a few minutes, but I do have one more question. This is, again, going to be for each panelist. What kind of help do you think downtown needs coming out of COVID? And that could be, what kind of government help is needed, whether it's city or state or federal, or what kind of help just from an individual? So all the people who are watching, what could they be doing to help downtown?
Sorry, I already had my mask off. I apologize. Kind of what are you thinking? So from a city perspective, I mean, their hands are tied a little bit. Now that they have some of the CARES funding coming through, I think they have a little bit, more flexibility, but they're doing it. And I don't know if everyone's aware of it, but they put out restaurant grants. Now, I understand that, when problems could be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, $10,000 to $30,000 could be, maybe seem as, not such a big thing, but we have some hospitality businesses downtown, and we'll take what we can get. And I think that, to be honest with you, coming out with that second round of that is a big deal. And they've stepped up, and that's supposedly is coming. And I think, that's really at that level is something that is unexpected, because we typically think pandemic, well, that should be federal dollars, federal. And the city has really taken funds that they have and say, look, we need to take this, put it towards these businesses, and really segment. The CID did a fantastic job of going through all the businesses in the short north. I can't believe that heavy of a lift of allocating all those dollars, but I'm really, really happy they were able to do it.
Yeah, for us, that's just it. I mean, a lot of the grants and things like that at the local level aren't for us, and I think that that's the correct action because, I think we are, through some other legislation that's passed at the federal level, are benefiting more from PPP. If we had higher payrolls prior to the pandemic, we're getting more money than a lot of smaller businesses are. We're able to take advantage of employee retention credits and things like that are, good for us. There's so many other businesses on a smaller scale, and we, as a wholesaler on the beer side, we work with these retailers, these bars and restaurants, and I think they're the ones that really need the support. So anything that we can do on the local level is extremely helpful. I know the state is looking to do grants as well. That is all going to be very helpful. But at the end of the day, it's our community. We really need our community support to come out, eat at the bars and restaurants, and if you're not comfortable with dining in yet, just take out, delivery, anything that's available through your local, restaurants and bars and small businesses. Our sales manager put it, well in that you want to water the plants you want to keep, so go to the coffee shop that you want to see in 2022, go to the restaurant that you want to see in 2022. We at Wolf's Ridge are working with a couple other small businesses to kind of do a grassroots Columbus, Without Us campaign. And I think, we're hoping that this helps just continue to reinforce the importance of community support, because that has been carrying us and a lot of other small businesses through this. And it's really going to be important until that convention and tourism traffic come back.
And from a resident standpoint, I think one of the things that I could do, we could do, others could do is just continue to support downtown and be a voice of support, hyping up the city. So my husband and I, when we have friends pre-COVID that lived outside the city that wanted to hang out, we kind of call ourselves downtown snobs. So like, you come downtown, we're not going to come to you. So just kind of getting people to come downtown and realize how great the city is, and that downtown will bounce back after COVID. And I think just being innovative. So like Bob talked about the places that are now, having outdoor dining, which I think is a great opportunity, not just because of COVID, but I think just being able to eat outside is kind of a cool thing. And so being innovative with that and hyping up the city, I think will be great for moving forward.
There's one other item I wanted to point out. If anyone who's watching could participate, it'd be really helpful, is to ask some of the I think at the state level, I saw a few state buildings still had boards up. Anybody that has boards up right now, I think it would really help if we could get those down. Now, I'm someone that has boards up on one building still, because we're getting ready to redevelop it here starting in the next couple months. But it really does, when you drive through downtown. We've had some people from out of town in, they say, is there something going on here? And then we say, no, that's from the protests, back, over the summer. And why are the boards still up? And I don't really have a great answer for it. And I think it's something to where perception is reality. And we know we have a safe environment downtown, but sometimes, just out of protection or just haven't got around to it yet. But if we can make a conscious effort of just trying to get those boards down, I think it would really just help the overall good.
And I'll put in my own personal plug that, for all those downtown workers who haven't been to your favorite lunch spot in a year, they would love to prepare a takeout order for you. So come on down, call them up. I know Palmo and D at Cafe Napolitana are ready to do pizzas for you. So it is CMC's tradition to take audience questions. James Scott from CMC is curating questions from the live stream audience. What's our first question?
Well, we have lots of questions. Some have already been discussed, so I'm going to go to the ones who haven't. Debbie Holmes from NPR News, WSU Public Media. What worries you the most about the future for downtown? Vaccines are here, protests are over. What's on your mind?
Is that from?
I'll just, for me, I think what Brad just said, it's the perception of downtown, it's the energy. We need that back. We need people to be excited about it. I think it's been kind of roughly discussed here, but downtown is so critical to the success of the region. And it's, it is the core of it. It's where people, when they come into Columbus, for a convention or for vacation or whatever, they're going to us first. We're seeing that because, we participate in the Ale Trail, and we, by far more than any other brewery, have more stamps, and we give away more bucks. So they're coming to us, and we're sending them throughout the city. And that energy is so critical because, if they first step out of their hotel room and they see what it's like right now, that's not a pretty sight, So I think continuing to just be excited about downtown, make sure it's a priority for us as a region, is really, really important.
Melanie Korn, president of CCAD, says work will be more hybrid, prioritizing face-to-face work for creative collaboration and strategic work. How can downtown change to support these changes?
So I personally don't have a huge issue. I mean, we have a lot of office space, especially downtown. But at the same time, as work from home is something that it has appeal, obviously, to a certain amount of employers. I don't mind if you work from home. Just live downtown. Live downtown solves the problem. And I think if we can push that, I mean, it's not a huge issue, but. In reality, Brent Crawford made the statement of I think 2 years from now that he could see the headlines reading, work from home is dead. I'm subscribing to that thought, to be honest with you. I mean, we've gone through it, and I think we could have these hybrid workplaces, but I think having an office is a strategic advantage for employers. And when you're recruiting talent and you want to have culture, it's very difficult to establish and create culture, especially for a startup when you're working from home. And I think that's a critical thing. So hybrid could occur, and that's okay. A hybrid could occur, and I think there's more seasoned and tenured employees. I think probably would desire that. Maybe employees of families. But I know this: when I was at home, the first 2 weeks, and we have around 200 employees, so we're not a large employer by Columbus standards, but we have enough to know that what we're doing is either good or bad. And when we first started work from home, I was excited because I thought, well, wait, I get to set in on calls on management, I get to set in on calls on construction, I get to set in, and all these employees I never really was able to interact with previously, I'm able to see them perform, and it was a great thing. And then about 6 weeks later, I found that other appointments got back in the way, and then I was missing calls. And then eventually you have this concern of, as my family was asking me to do things, we were staying at home, I had concern, if I have the company and I'm thinking about maybe fitting in a workout or going and taking my kids to the pool middle of the day, it's kind of, I don't know if my employees would be disciplined enough if I can't do it, And then I started thinking, wow, is this the new normal? Are we going to have literally, am I going to have to wonder if my employees are actually working? And I think that, I guess, general paranoia, it kind of fit. And when we were able to go back to office, we went back. So I think it's, for the next couple years, we're going to have to consider it. A hybrid is a possibility. I don't think we have to, there are changes in how to design offices, but I really think that the path that offices were taking with large communal areas where people could have flexible working environments and not just, structured, separated office spaces, I think it'll be back. We have to have faith in vaccines. We have to have faith in medicine. I think it'll be back, and people need people. And that's how you develop company culture. So I think that'll come back, and we'll see these trends continue that were pre-COVID.
Doug Buchanan from Business First wants to ask you, Brad, any changes to the trolley barn or other projects because of changing trends from the pandemic?
Pandemic, no. Trolley barn almost didn't happen because of the pandemic. We literally closed it on Friday before the order to shut down. So if it would have been 1 week later, it wouldn't have happened. There's no way. It was like aligning the worlds to get that deal to close. And right now, it's looking great. Columbus Brewing Company is, their building's absolutely phenomenal. The East Market, Butcher and the grocer is making a huge dent over there in that market. We're excited. It's happening. It's going to be better than we initially planned. I mean, I'm really excited. With regards to Municipal Light Plant, we lost a tenant, but we filled it, and I think we have maybe 12,000 square feet left to lease in there. So, but there's a stadium across the street, and how that looks is phenomenal. I was lucky enough to get through that last week with the Crew's leadership, and it's an NFL caliber stadium. It's an NFL different kind of soccer, a different kind of football, but it's an NFL caliber stadium, and we're excited. And so all we did really is, it's a mud hole over there right now, but it's happening. Next couple months, you're going to see some amazing changes coming about that area.
Good deal. Bob, there are lots of new activities that have been announced on 4th Street. The synergy there, is that going to help you? Are you concerned about the traffic, as you said, being such a thoroughfare up 4th?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely going to help us. As Brad mentioned, having on South 4th, you've got a collection of restaurants and bars down there. We've always felt that trying to connect, North and South 4th there is really important. So the more that we can get to fill in there, the better it's going to be. We saw a huge increase in business when Pins opened up, and there's a reciprocal relationship between us and them, and all the others around us that just reinforces the energy of downtown. The traffic. Yes, I think that we could have a calming effect somehow to just encourage more walking and biking downtown, but the increased density of really cool spaces to check out is extremely important. So I'm all for it.
And if I could add, the city is finishing up their Vision Zero study right now. And that was another thing that started right before the pandemic. And there's a lot of recommendations in there about how to calm streets, not just in downtown, but throughout the city. And again, building for people, not necessarily just for cars. And so I think we'll see some exciting things come out of that.
Right. I've had some concerns from some property owners that are very concerned about the value of their properties declining because of the perception of downtown and the violence that took place. Your thoughts?
Well, I can, as a homeowner who just recently sold their property to buy a new property, it definitely did not hurt us. So I think if anyone is concerned with that, there definitely was a few places while we were listing our place on the market, we basically got an offer in the week that we did it. So in the middle of a pandemic, after the protest. So it wasn't something that hurt us. And from other friends and friend realtors, they're also seeing kind of the similar thing, that there was an uptick in the summer, warmer months as far as like home ownership. So for us, it worked out.
Do you see the shift from some of the larger cities because of potential hybrid working or work from home benefiting mid-sized cities like Columbus?
Absolutely. We had a call, I think Alex Fisher or Kenny McDonald might have had a call with some developers right after COVID hit and some of these discussions, and we had some of the major office developers on the phone locally, and they already were seeing trends where employers from some of the coastal cities, major metropolitan areas were already looking, to potentially move or have a satellite office in Columbus. And one of the great things we have here is, in contrast to other Midwestern cities, is we have Ohio State University, and it's just a constant churning of like new talent. And I think that from an employer standpoint, the level of talent that's coming out of Ohio State is incredibly attractive. And when we look at it for downtown Columbus, that is going to be something to where these major employers need to start really factoring in that, hey, we want to have a home there, and standard of living is high, low cost of living, and I think it's a very attractive place, and we've already seen a lot of interest. I don't know if it really has yielded any mega tenants yet, but products getting ready to come on the market, and when they move here, they only want Class A, they only want high-end product.
actually, too. So I went to Ohio State. I studied finance and graduated in 2007. I remember before I graduated, I talked to a real estate professor, and because I was interested in living in an urban environment, and I said, what's it going to take for Columbus to really, improve that? And something that he said was, it is the core of the city, and it needs to connect the Short North and German Village and all these other areas of the city. So I moved to Chicago, and my dad and I started talking about doing this, and came back, and that continued to come back to my mind, and that's one of the reasons that we wanted to be downtown. And we set up shop there because we knew that for us to, you want to be the change you want to see, and we wanted to build a really solid core, and I think that continues to be extremely important.
So Richard Needles from Productive People Strategies asks, how can downtown high-end residential development be balanced with residential development for low or moderate income citizens?
So we'll have a quick answer here. So we're an affordable housing developer also. I think for low and moderate income citizens, downtown is difficult. It's incredibly difficult. It's going to take government incentive. That's the only way we're going to have it. But at the same time if we want to have housing to where people who work downtown can live, people that are in the service industry, then we have to have it, and we have to have more of it. So I think from what I've heard from city officials, they're looking at it. They know that we need it. They're on board. They're just trying to figure out how and where, and I think it's going to have to happen as infill. So some of these big vacant office buildings and things, dinosaurs, I think that's a great chance to repurpose, and we need to do mixed income housing. It can't just be a tower of low income housing, and I think everybody's getting that, because that creates economic mobility and is a deterrent to generational poverty. So I think that's what you're going to see coming up here in the next few years.
Excellent. I hope you enjoyed today's forum. As someone whose business has been located at Broad and High for 35 years, I'm very interested in a thriving downtown, and I'm very bullish on it. I just signed another 10-year lease. So our forum next week features Columbus Health Commissioner Dr. Mashika Roberts and a panel of health experts as we explore COVID vaccine issues and getting shots in arms. As we conclude, let's thank today's sponsors, the Edwards Company, Marker Inc., and the Robert Weiler Company. And thanks also to the Emergency Response Fund of the Columbus Foundation for presenting our live streaming in partnership with the Dispatch and PNC. And thanks once again to our online virtual seat patrons. We really appreciate it. A special appreciation to our speakers. We couldn't do this without you. Brad DeHays, Bob Szuter, Timothy Crawford, and of course, Marc. Thank you, Marc Conte. We hope you'll tune in again next week. Until then, be well and stay safe.